Good evening. France-Armenia defense partnership is the focus of our conversation tonight with a former defense attaché of France in South Caucasus, Colonel Jean-Luc Théos. Colonel Théos, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you to you for invitation.
France, an EU and NATO member, is forming a defense partnership with Armenia. Can we consider this as encouragement for Armenia to move a step closer to the EU and to the NATO?
I would say yes and no. Yes, of course, because it's the idea of getting closer to the so-called Euro-Atlantic structures means that you have to reach certain standards in terms of military capabilities as well as, I would say, value standards. And I know that Armenia is already in a part of the program of the PFP, and those partnership, those agreements between especially two NATO countries, Greece and France, with Armenia would help certainly Armenia in its path towards Euro-Atlantic integration, yes.
So we have to achieve a certain standard before we can actually think of joining NATO, not the other way around. Is this what you're saying?
To use a very common expression, I would say it would be a win-win situation. Yes, I think that Armenia has to transform its armed forces. If I would be a bit sharp, I would say to keep on de-Sovietizing its armed forces, to get closer to NATO military culture, I would say, or Western or European military culture, to be more precise. And I think that's a good example, and I know that in Armenia you've been considering this example. Good example would be the Finnish experience regarding its integration in NATO, because before Finland recently joined to NATO, they managed to build, since their independence, by the way, in 1917, a very efficient military tool.
Colonel, Moldova signed a security and defense partnership with the EU. Can Armenia, in your estimation, hope for the same at this stage?
Personally, I have no doubt, and I know it's also a recent event. I just remember that after the visit of your Prime Minister to EU, the High Rep for EU foreign policy and security, Mr. Borrell, declared that there will be other such partnerships. He mentioned that the aim is to build if I remember well, he said something like a network of partners or network of friends. So yes, there is a possibility for Armenia to benefit from that kind of umbrella, I would say. The idea is to have in mind that you still have not to antagonize your former main partner, and that you have to find a balance, I would say, between the influence of EU in this region and still the military and the economical influence of Russia in Armenia that we must take into account. But a good sign, and Mrs. von der Leyen mentioned it, the good sign is that Armenia recently made an effort to implement sanctions against Russia. So yes, I think there is also a path for such an umbrella in Armenia. It probably will take a little more time than what it took for Moldova.
Assault rifles, short-range Mistral missiles are under discussion. Personnel carriers, Bastion vehicles have already been transported to Armenia. But these are very cautious, defensive investments in the reformation of a post-Soviet army. France is an active reformer of the armies of Greece and Cyprus. Do you believe that there is potential for more, especially with the prospect of standardizing the Armenian army to join NATO in the possible future?
Yes, of course, but not only with France or Greece. And I think that Armenia MOD should also consider taking experiences, skills in other EU/NATO countries. But to come back to France, there were some letter of intentions regarding, especially as you mentioned it, ground-based air defense package, I would say, because it's a combination of very efficient radars and short air defense system, Mistral. I think the most important are the perspective in military education and the assistance that France can bring to Armenia in, as already mentioned, the transformation process of its military tool, and especially, I would stress, based on my experience and what I know about the Armenian armed forces, but remember that I was a DA in the region during 3 years, in 2009 to 2012, so things have changed, that you have to transform the mentality, the leadership, I would say the military leadership, and to find the conditions to allow the younger leaders to be able to take initiative in the peacetime during training, to find solutions, to bring new ideas, and in the battlefield to be able to conduct a decentralized battle. I think this is more than new weapons, etc. This is what will make the Armenian army more efficient and difficult to fight against, I would say. And I think that several European countries can bring that kind of experience to you, including my country, France.
Armenia is making its first steps in the military industry. Do you see a prospect of joint production with France?
It's a question that should be asked to the defense companies. In fact, they're all, even if the state is where to say, they're all private. So if they find interest and to do that, they will. I remember that when I was in the region, that the defense industry of Armenia was not so developed. It was one of the prime to depend mainly on weapons buying, especially in Russia. But I remember that there was already a capacity to build UAVs, locally made UAVs. I think this capacity still exists, and it would be a possibility for joint production. It would be simple, by the way, and maybe the example of Ukraine would be interesting, because Ukraine is setting up a lot of joint ventures with European partners regarding defense industry in the field of maintenance, repair, UAVs, etc. So it would be my answer, but it's difficult to. I'm not a specialist of defense industry in the details, so, but this is what I would say. And I think that in the Eurosatory will take place mid-June, and I'm pretty sure that there will be Armenian delegations to visit our companies, defense companies over there in France.
They also accompanied, those private companies accompanied the defense minister to Armenia. So hopefully this is another thing that is on the table. Colonel, infrastructure changes are underway in our region. Infrastructure is a security component. In your estimation, is France interested in becoming a part or taking a part, for example, in the railway system in or through Armenia?
Ooh, difficult questions. Again, I'm not very specialist of that. I've heard of, I know that South Caucasus is a strategic region regarding the so-called corridors. So I know that there are projects on the table, the so-called north-south transport corridor, the so-called, even if it does not go through South Caucasus, the IMEC, etc. Honestly, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that in France we are aware about all this project of infrastructure, railway, the roads, and that will allow to connect Asia and especially India to Europe, to Northern Europe, and to and to the Middle East. But honestly, I cannot answer to this question with more detailed information because I don't have any.
President Macron did not exclude the possibility of sending troops to Ukraine. Will France, in your estimation, send troops to Armenia in case Azerbaijan does launch another attack?
I will reformulate the question. I think that in the case of Ukraine, it will be only if Kiev is demanding that some countries, not only France, but probably others, and you probably heard of them, send people in Ukraine. So it's not just a purely French initiative, I would say. In the case of a new conflict in the South Caucasus, my feeling is that France will be more efficient with the political influence in EU or in the UN, or even, talking with the local actors than sending troops in Armenia during the conflict. My feeling is that, and we started to do that, we will send advisors on a need to train basis, depending on what Armenia needs to learn from us. I think that the question of sending troops, if there is a new conflict in the region, is a bit premature, and I will not go into the details about that. You know what President Macron said about Ukraine. We must maintain the strategic ambiguity. So allow me to be a bit ambiguous about that.
Azerbaijan denies Armenia the right to self-defense, while their own military expenditures since 1995 are 5 times higher. Your comments, please.
My comment is, as I said in the beginning of the interview, that Armenia's partners must help Yerevan to fill this power gap. It's obvious there is a power gap between the Azerbaijani armed forces resources and those of Armenia, and this gap is dangerous for the stability of the region. It does not allow to set up the situation where the different parties in the region can sit and talk around the table. So I would say that it's important that Armenia has the possibility to fill this power gap, and that I would say the military balance in the region will be more efficient and not disbalanced as it is at the moment. It's clear that Azerbaijan has been rearming itself for long years. It was obvious, it was shown during military parade. There is no secret about that. They have a lot of resources, but as I also said at the beginning of the interview, weapons are not sufficient. The idea, and I stressed on that point for Armenia, the idea is to transform the leadership and the capacity to fight with flexibility and agility with the proper weapon system. And then you have to adapt your doctrine, to adapt the way you train your young leaders. You have to create a corps of non-commissioned officers, etc. And this will be very efficient to, I would say, to deter the resuming of war in the region, I would say.
And last but not least, the Minister of Greece did not exclude the possibility of a quadrilateral partnership between France, India, Armenia and Greece. Such a partnership would be an important factor to prevent another war in the region. Are there practical steps being taken to push such partnership along?
Like the pact that was given to Moldova, the event, the declaration of the Greek defense minister is quite recent, and I did not observe any reaction in France at the moment yet. I think it's a good idea in the principle, because Greece, France, and India have very strong bilateral agreement between each other. It will be France and India. It will be something like 20 years of partnerships, if I remember, 25 years. And they both have a different kind of influence in the global situation, especially India, whose foreign policy is based on the fact that it can talk to everybody. So that's one of the main features of the Indian foreign policy, whereas Greece and France are natural NATO partners with their own policy of interest. So I would say that yes to an alliance of influence in the service of stability in the South Caucasus, because this is the final point. By the way, this is the objective that this alliance should aim at. I cannot see more at the moment for the time being than an alliance of influence, as I say, and maybe a kind of, sorry for the expression, but coordination board to coordinate the satisfying of the security needs of Armenia regarding military training, weapon system, the change of doctrine, educating the leadership, etc. This is my personal opinion about that. But again, the event it's too early, and there is no real analysis at the moment on the French mainstream media, for what I know.
Thank you one more time for this opportunity.
You're welcome.
Colonel Jean-Luc Théus, France's former defense attaché in South Caucasus, joined the first analytical from France.